Hello everyone, this is Reg Cousineau, founder of Paragon Training. I help business leaders, managers, and their staff to communicate more effectively with each other and also with their customers so they can be more productive. Have you had a conversation with another person and felt either they totally misunderstood you or you misunderstood them? Either way, the end result or the outcome that you were looking for did not materialize. We call this miscommunication, and unfortunately it is rampant in the workplace, in the home, at school, and anywhere where people interact with one another. And it doesn't happen only when we're face to face, but it also happens when we're on the telephone or exchanging emails and text messages. Over the years, I've had my share of miscommunication situations, and the results were dreadful. Things that weren't supposed to happen, happened. Things that did happen weren't supposed to happen. Projects came back either late, incomplete, or totally wrong. It was a complete waste of time, resources, energy, and also money. Effective communication is so important that it impacts every single aspect of your life. In fact, in a training session I was leading, 13 managers were sharing with me the challenges that they were experiencing trying to motivate their staff, trying to teach their new hires new skills, and also how to lead with more confidence. And as we explored together of all these skills an individual has, whether they're hard skills like technical or mechanical, or they're soft skills like time management, decision making, problem solving skills. Of all of these skills, the most crucial of them all is the ability to communicate effectively. It's not surprising that of 58 large companies who were surveyed, every single executive said that the major factor to their advancement was communication. So let's take a look at what makes up communication. How do we establish this? A few years ago, a professor by the name of Dr. Albert Mehrabian over at the University of California in Berkeley wanted to observe how accurately he could decipher or predict the emotional state of people. And so he observed a group of people, and what he found was that when we communicate with people, the largest part of our communication is done non-verbally, through our body language. In fact, 55% of our communication is transmitted through our body language. Then he also found that 38% of our communication is shared through the tone of voice. And finally, and meagerly, only 7% of our communication is transmitted by the words that we use. So that was 55% from body language, 38% through the tone of voice, and only 7% through the words that we use. And if you want to check this out, and if you have a dog, try this experiment. Using beautiful, loving words, but with a harsh tone of voice, and with threatening body gestures as if to hit your dog, approach your dog and see what happens. And you will find that your dog will cower away and put distance between you and it as quickly as possible. Conversely, use horrible words, profane words, negative words, but with a beautiful tone of voice and with loving gestures to pat and scratch your dog. And then you'll watch your dog wag its tail and think you're the best master in the world. What happens is that people also want us, when we interact with them, to follow these three parts. And they want us to be in harmony or congruent in all of these parts, so that our body language, our tone of voice, and our words are in harmony with one another. And by the way, children are very adept at picking that up if you're not too harmonious or not too congruent. It was John F. Kennedy who says, if we are strong, our strength will speak for itself. However, if we are weak, words will be of no help. And what he was saying was that if we are strong, then we can communicate effectively. We can be the person that we want to be. And as a result of that, we can enjoy many benefits of effective communication. There are 4 things that I'd like to share with you today, and you'll see how communication impacts every single part of those. So the first one that I want to share with you is that we cannot not communicate. Yes, that's a double negative, so let me say it again. We cannot not communicate. Everything that we do communicates, whether it's the papers on our desks, whether it's the pictures on the walls, whether it's the cleanliness of our space, it communicates. And if you ever go to a meeting and just sit there, don't say a word, people will wonder what's wrong with you. Are you angry? Are you upset? Are you totally disinterested? Why are you being so quiet? You're still communicating. So we need to be aware of how we do that. By the way, if you ignore somebody who's trying to communicate with you, you're communicating. And we have to be careful that what we communicate is what we want to communicate, because the response that you're going to get from not communicating may not be what you intended. The second point is that the meaning or the effectiveness of your communication is the response you get by it. So what happens is that if, let's say that you are sharing some information with a friend and then all of a sudden you say a joke and you want to make the person laugh, but unfortunately they are offended by your joke, what happened to your communication? It was not effective, and the meaning of it got drowned out by them being offended. Yet all along, what you were trying to do was just to be able to share a joke and make them laugh. So how did all of that happen? And what you'll notice is that we can get different responses sometimes by the emphasis that we use on different words. For example, let me use a one sentence, 5 words, but put an emphasis on each one of the words. Here we go. Why should I trust you? 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 And finally, why should I trust you? Can you appreciate how each sentence is different? And this creates a challenge for people who are using or maybe have learned English as a second language and not their first, and unfortunately have not picked up on the nuances of the English language. So it's very important that we remember that. The third point to remember is that there is no failure in communication. There's only feedback. There's no failure, only feedback. So if you're communicating with another person and you're not getting the response, you're not getting the feedback that you're supposed to get or the results you're supposed to get, doesn't mean you failed, just means that you didn't communicate properly. And that's feedback. So sometimes you'll communicate with another person and you expect them to nod in agreement and understanding, but instead they have this puzzled look on their face. What's this all about? Here's a situation that you can probably relate to. A few years ago, I was in Cozumel, Mexico, and I wanted to buy a dozen roses. In fact, I wanted to buy a dozen yellow roses. But up to that point, my vocabulary, in my Spanish vocabulary, consisted of fewer than 10 words. And yellow roses was not part of that. So I walked into a shop when I'm in Cozumel, and I approach the lady behind the counter and I say in English, "Can I buy 1 dozen yellow roses?" And she shrugs her shoulders and shakes her head. She does not understand. So I repeat a little bit slower, and I say, may I buy a dozen yellow roses? And once again, the response was exactly the same, shrugged her shoulder and shook her head. There was somebody not too far away who did speak English and came over and said, una docena de rosas amarillas. No, let me try again. Una docena de rosas amarillas, por favor. And the lady says, ah, sí. And she went over and got me a dozen yellow roses. And that was it. After I finished the transaction with her, I walked out and I was reminded again about how important communication is and how easy it is to miscommunicate or not to get understood at all. And that brings us to the fourth and final point. And that is that if what you're doing doesn't work, try something else. Let's all remember the definition of insanity is trying to repeat the same behavior and expecting different results. Successful communicators have learned that they have to have flexibility depending upon the situation that they're in. So they know that with a certain situation, they have to respond in one way, in another, they respond totally differently. And it's been said that the person with the most flexibility in a situation actually controls that situation. Something for us to remember. So those 4 points again, you cannot not communicating. No, you cannot not communicate. The meaning or effectiveness of your communication is the response you get. There is no failure, only feedback. And finally, if something doesn't work, change it and try something different. I hope you've enjoyed this video on communication. Like I said, my name is Reg Cousineau, and I am the founder of Paragon Training, and I'm also the author of several booklets, including this one here that's called A Pocket Guide to Effective Communication. You can go to my webpage at www.paragontraining.ca, that's .ca, not .com, and order the ebook online. I enjoyed this time being with you, and I hope to be with you again in the very near future. Have yourself a great day.